So, let me begin by saying thank you so very much for the invitation to come back and to be with my family at Trinity in Greece. You were one of the very first parishes that reached out to me to come and visit, and I stayed with you for a number of Sundays, you might remember. And so every time that I'm asked to come back to Trinity and I open my calendar and it's available, I say yes! Because it's kind of like a family reunion, right? It is for me. So if you feel differently, please don't tell me. If you're one of those people that says, oh my God, the King of the Ordinary is coming back again, you just keep it to yourself. Talk to your friends about it. Don't tell me. Okay? So what is it today's gospel has to say to us as a family? To the people of God in Trinity in Greece and the other parts surrounding Greece. What is it that the gospel says? Well, it's Mark's gospel, the baptism, so it doesn't say much, right? I mean, Mark doesn't say much about anything. He sort of like tells you and then leaves you and then tells you something else. But we could put the rest of the story together because we know the story, right? But in today's gospel, Jesus is somehow drawn to John the Baptist in the wilderness, where he is baptized by John. Mark tells us that as Jesus was coming up out of the water, he saw the heavens torn open. He saw the Spirit like a dove landing on him, and he heard a voice that came from heaven that said, "You are my Son, the beloved, in whom I am well pleased." Now, the challenge that I like to ask every single time I'm preaching is I like to ask, where are you in that gospel? Find yourself in that gospel. Are you the one attracted to some wild person who preaches a good sermon and is baptizing people along the Jordan whose outfit looks odd? Are you the person that is odd? Yeah, I think that's the reason we love each other so much. I'm kind of an odd guy myself. Are you the person who's being baptized? Do you remember your baptism? And if not, do you know why that happened to you? Were you the person who has seen the heavens opened? Have you been a recipient of the Spirit lighting upon you? Have you ever heard a voice say, "You are my beloved"? Have you ever been among the wild beasts? Have you ever been in a barren land? Has angels ever attended to you? Or as today's gospel says, the angels waited on him. I can tell you that your rector reports that angels have waited on her for the entire time that she has been sick. That the angels of Trinity have come to her in one way or another, bringing food, offering prayers, giving her a call, sending cards, leaving messages. Because my sisters and my brothers, we are the angels of God in this place. Right? And if you don't think you're one of those special people that I can call an angel of God, then perhaps, maybe even recently, you have heard someone say to you, "You are my beloved." I mean, Valentine's Day is not that far in the past. Certainly, some of us got that message, right? I pride myself in being able to outdo my wife on Valentine's Day and anniversaries. And I take pride in being able to kind of beat her at that. Yeah, that's right. I do. And she will tell you, I don't like to lose at anything. My kids will tell you that when I played basketball with them and they were 3 and 4 years old, I would not let them win. I might let them score a time or two, but they would not win. That's how competitive I am. But I'm here to confess to you that this Valentine's Day I lost. Because I did all the right things. You know, I got flowers, I got a gift, I got a card, and I was so proud of myself. Until I walked into the bedroom and found 5 little red bags sitting on the bed. One for every sense of the body. Yeah, there was a gift for the sense of smell. There was a gift for the sense of sight. And I thought, she put way too much thought into this. But in those 5 little gifts, and they weren't much, you know, for the sense of smell, I got this really nice, little, tiny, small pack of Kleenexes with hearts on them. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, you see, she outdid me. Right? I mean, just with that little gift, she outdid me. And they were all little, tiny gifts. But the message of those gifts was, you are my beloved. And this morning, you know, I nearly was moved to tears when I heard that Kyle spent his money to provide for some other child. A child so helpless and so vulnerable that they have to be taken somewhere for a tribe of people to take care of them, right? Certainly you heard how beloved those children are to him. Now, I won't ask you to share your Valentine's Day gifts, but think about those. Think about that time of the year, even if it's outside Valentine's Day. There must have been a time in which you knew that you were loved. That you didn't have to doubt that anymore. That a parent hugged you. That a grandparent picked you up and gave you your way. That's how I love my grandchildren. There's no rules at Granddad's house. I mean, it drives everybody else crazy, but yeah, I give them a pass. Certainly, there was a time which you knew yourself to be loved. Think about how today's gospel unfolds. Put yourself in 1 or 2 or 3 of those places. And God bless you if you can find yourself in all of them. Because that's the challenge. To find yourself as Jesus walking to the Jordan. To find yourself as John preaching the good news. To find yourself being the beloved of God. To find yourself as angels, worthy of angels waiting on you. So what does this gospel have to say about our Lenten journey? I hear that your Lenten journey will include a book called Faithfully Fit. I think it has a whole lot to do with that journey. Keep in mind that it was the Spirit who drove Jesus into the wilderness. Jesus didn't get baptized by John, come out and say, you know, that A word, and say, and just jump around with his hands in the air and say, I'm going to skip into the wilderness and see what I can find there. No. Jesus had an experience in baptism that he had to process. They had to find time to be alone. Or as alone as one can be with God. And the Spirit drove him into the wilderness, which is southwest of the Jordan River. A great distance. And while he was there, he wrestled with things. Mark says he was tempted by Satan, but we know the rest of that story, right? And we know how Jesus was tempted to turn stones into bread to satisfy his hunger. For instance. And for Jesus to have been tempted by anything, it must have crossed his mind how nice it would be to do it. Otherwise, it would not have been a temptation. So when Jesus picked up the stone and looked at it and said, I know if I lift this above my head, give thanks to God, and bring it to my mouth, it will become my bread. Jesus must have known that for it to be a temptation. And then Jesus had a second thought. Yep, that will relieve my hunger now. But I can't live on this one stone that's going to be changed to bread. And I can see in my mind's eye Jesus dropping it and beginning to walk on his journey. I can see that when Jesus was at the top of the temple, and that everything there would be his if he would just throw himself off and let the angels catch him. I could see where Jesus would say, oh man, that would be the easy way out. Because I'm going to stay out here 40 days and I'm on day 20. I can get rid of 20 by doing it. And then Jesus must have had a second thought. Yeah, I can do that now. But where will I be the rest of my life? While in the wilderness, Jesus was tempted with food and with power. I don't know about you, but that has been a temptation all of my life. Food and power. I'm the oldest of 3 children. By birthright, I had power over 2 of them. Yeah, that's the way I behaved. Yeah. I'm not proud of it. Well, yes, I am. But because I'm the oldest, right? No, honestly, I'm not proud of it, but that's the way I behaved. And one time when my brother came to me and said, why are we so different? And we are as different as daylight and dark. If he was in this congregation, he would not recognize him as my brother. I said, well, I will tell you, but you can't read a word of his mom. And so he straightened himself up and presented himself as ready, and I told him he was adopted. Yeah, he's not. No, he's not. But that's what I told him. And he threw his hands in the air, went screaming inside the house, and you know the next person to scream? Yeah, was the man who delivered the message. My mother took me by the hand, and I don't know what time she let me go. But I know I met my brother back in the yard after he had cried and wiped his tears away. And he says, now, you'll think about that before you lie again, won't you? And you know what I told him? I told him I didn't lie. Mom spanked me because she wanted to wait and tell you. Yeah! That's the power that I tried to have over my siblings. And don't sit there like you're innocent. I mean, if you're the youngest, I know you've tried. My sister still cries to me. Because she wants to change my mind about something. It's things we struggle with in our daily life. And you know, I may be different than you. But the things that I give up for Lent, I focus on. Like yesterday when I was given pizza to eat for lunch. My first thought wasn't to thank God for the wonderful pizza that I had in front of me. My first thought was, wouldn't it be nice to have a Coke? Instead of drinking the water that I was drinking. You see, we as human beings, as a whole, are just ungrateful people. Now, you asked me to pray over our meal afterwards. And I will remember the old Boy Scout prayer that says, for food, for raiment, for life, for opportunity, for friendship and fellowship, we give thanks to you, O Lord. Where was that thought when I received my pizza yesterday? But keep in mind that it is the Spirit that drives you into Lent, not the liturgical calendar. It is the Spirit that moved the Sunday school teachers that cause them to sort of wrap up that word and take it out of the church in the blessed hope that we wouldn't slip up and say it. It is God who drives you into the wilderness. And when God does, God promises angels to care for you, to wait on you. And God promises that even when we slip up, that God will say, "You are my beloved, and I'm so pleased with you." Because Jesus tells us also in Mark that it's not what goes into the body that defiles you, right? It's what comes out of the body. Now Mark gives us a little bit more information on this than I wish he wouldn't. Because Mark says, in one of the translations, he will say, "For what goes in the body goes into the mouth and is dumped in the sewer and is forgotten." But it is what comes out of the body that will defile you. And then we get a list. We get a list of things. Fornication and murder. Licentiousness, pride, slander, envy, fornication, adultery. Forgetting to give thanks for what you have, rather than the Coke that you wish you did. Worried about being outdone by a gift of love. Paul might say that we're an ungrateful lot, we human beings. And of all the things Paul says that I disagree with, I would have to agree with Paul. I can be a very ungrateful human. And the season of Lent is designed to help me focus on those things that I would forget if Lent was not there. It's not about the Coke. It's not about the desserts. It's not about my candy bar. It is about what is that comes out of me. I'm a type 2 diabetic. And sometimes when I'm extremely hungry and we go out to eat, and the waitress comes over and says, "Can I get you anything to start with?" I say, "Yes, sweetheart, you had better." Or there's going to be a Snickers commercial break out here, and you're going to star in it whether you like it or not. Because I get grumpy. Now, I can blame it on the diabetes. Or I can have a second thought and say she didn't cause my problem. This is not the only table she's come to today. It's not going to be the only table she'll come to today. And I could say to him or her, "Yes, I would like a roll, please." Lent is about going to the table, going into the wilderness, going into places where you would not go otherwise and be grateful. Faithfully fit. I haven't read the book, but I did kind of skim it because I was given marching orders by your priest that I better mention it. So, Debs, I am. And then she sent her dogs here to spy on me to make sure. Faithfully fit has everything to do with how you treat the body. Yours as an individual member of it. Because we are the body of Christ. And individually members of it. The Apostle Paul says some are the hands and some are the legs and some are the feet and some is the head and some will be the ears and some will be the eyes. And when we let the Spirit push us into Lent and not the liturgical calendar, we come to understand that if I am the ears on the other side of Lent, at Easter, I don't need a hearing aid. If I happen to be the eyes on the other side of Lent at Easter Day, I don't need glasses. If I happen to be the legs or the arms on the other side of Lent, I don't need an apparatus to support them. Not literally, spiritually. For if the Spirit drives us into the season, and the Spirit takes us to the end of the season, and we can look on the day of the resurrection and find hope and gladness and joy that the body that was broken for us continues to be with us, then your journey into the wilderness has been a successful one. You are faithfully fit. So what do you do during this time? Be kind to yourself. I think it was Euripides who said, the second thoughts of humans are typically the most productive. So when I sat there and thought how wonderful it would be to have a Coke with my pizza, the second thought was more spiritually productive. When I asked myself, what are you doing? You have everything in the world to be grateful for, and you want that which you, on your own, have given up. You see, second thoughts is what I would encourage you to have during this season. Because the first thoughts are typically not that productive. Or they're not for me. And if you listen to the second thought, you see, Episcopalians don't have visions, right? They have thoughts. The Spirit doesn't move us, we take a trip. I mean, that's the way Episcopalians behave, right? But when the Spirit moves you, when you have a relationship with Jesus, when you are inspired by the Spirit, your second thoughts will be always more productive. Always more productive. I wonder how many thoughts Kyle had about helping those children before he turned to his bank for the answer. I know how many I would have. How many thoughts did you have before giving up whatever it was that you gave up for Lent? What are your thoughts now? When you get up in the morning and you're tired, and you're grumpy, and you have to get ready to come to church, what are your first thoughts? Yeah, now I see your face. And this was a second thought. Right? Because here, angels wait on you. Angels tend to your needs. Angels hug me in the narthex and say, it's so good to see you again. Johnnie, I'm so glad you could be with us again. Continue to tend to each other. Continue to be the angels on earth. Continue to be that light in the darkness. Continue to be that to which God has called you. And when it gets hard, let the angels tend to you. Because it will get hard. If we could do it all by ourselves, it would have been done on the cross. God needs help from us. We need help from God. We need help from each other. I need to be able to see the God image that you bear in order to make sense of the God image that I have in me. And not just yours and 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 yours. Because if I can't see the image of God in which you bear, I can't make sense out of the one that lives in me. Faithfully fit means staying together all the time. Not just when you have pizza and Coke. Not just when you get 5 little red bags left on the bed. Not just when things are going well. But when things are not going so well. When I became a parent, someone gave me some really good advice. Another daddy looked at me and said, a good dad is only as happy as their saddest child. And I have found that to be true. My happiness depends on the happiness of my saddest child. The degree of happiness that I find in my wife. The level of happiness I find in my church. The level of happiness I find in the clergy of this diocese, in the bishop of this diocese, in the church to which I have devoted my life. Do that, and I will guarantee you that sometime during this 40 days you will hear, you are my beloved child. And in you, I am well pleased. May God be with you in your faithfully fit journey into the wilderness we know as Lent.